Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I'll be playing the Warriors of Chaos, and I'm going to be facing off against the Wood Elves. So I actually think this is the first of the Chaos vs. Wood Elf games I've had on my channel, so hopefully you guys enjoy this one. So in my front line, I just got some standard rank and file Chaos Warriors. These guys are pretty solid in this matchup. Something to note is that they do have 100 armor, but on top of that, they also do have the silver shield icon, which indicates that they have, I believe, a 50% chance to block missile attacks. So again, the Wood Elves are most likely going to bring these bad boys over here, the Glade Guards with the Starfire Shafts, which are, pretty cheap armor-piercing missile units. So obviously, I'll do pretty well against Warriors of Chaos, but to counteract that, you're going to essentially just need high-tier shielded units. So Chaos Warriors do a pretty good job of absorbing that beatdown, despite the fact that they do have armor piercing. And also the Aspiring Champions in the secondary line kind of fit that same role. And another thing to consider is Chaos Warriors themselves have really high combat stats. Actually, when buffed right now, these ones actually have a few chevrons, so it's not the most accurate depiction, so let's go ahead and find some that don't. I think they all do. But regardless, they have right now 36 melee attack, 47 melee defense, which is pretty serious, and then 36 weapon strength. So, even though they're going to be facing against Eternal Guards who do have armor piercing, they're still probably going to outclass those guys quite a bit, especially considering I do have the Flaming Sword of Ruin and several other buffs at my disposal. So, big fan of the Chaos Warriors here. The Aspiring Champs, very, very solid as well. They have very high combat stats, and they excel against very lightly armored infantry. So these guys are going to have a field day. And, even the heroic units like the Lords, he looks like he has some great Eagles here. And let's go ahead and take a look at his Glade Lord. He only has 50 armor. So if the Aspiring Champions or any of these infantry are able to get a wrap on that Lord, it's going to be a good situation for me. In the back and in the wings here, I have Chaos Warriors with Halberds. So I have one group here, and then I have one group here. So again, with the Wood Elves, there's, in my opinion, several pretty dynamic builds, and some of them do bring Tree Men or, Durthu, for example. And the Chaos Warriors with the Halberds, especially with the Flaming Sword of Ruin, can do really, really well and just cut those trees down. So just to be safe, I decided to bring two groups, but it turned out he actually had quite a different army, and I'm actually going to pause it here because the action's actually about to get started. So, but these guys, I like them a lot in this matchup, and if it does come down to, fighting with the Lord, they'll do well. And even against these guys, they won't do terribly because, even with Halberds, they still have, 36 melee defense and, over 30 weapon strength. So pretty solid unit. This is actually one of my favorite units, though, against the Wood Elves, is the Forsaken. So one of the most annoying things about Wood Elf infantry and being kited is if we go ahead and take a look here at the Glade Guards, they actually have, 38 move speed. So a lot of the Chaos Warrior infantry, you can see 28 here. On the Aspiring Champions, they have 32, but these guys are so fast. They actually have 48 move speed. So these guys can chase down those missile units and can really punish them. Having, 60 plus weapon strength right now, of course, when they're buffed, against the, the very squishy, unarmored units, they will just tear them to shreds if I'm able to catch them. On that same coin, though, they do have, they have some armor, 75 armor, but they're not shielded. So, if the opponent's able to get several, healthy volleys of missile fire on these guys, they're going to go down pretty darn quick. So you have to be pretty careful with them. In the back here, I do have a Chaos Sorcerer. I actually meant to put him on a Manticore, but I totally forgot. So he's going to have to hoof it for most of this battle. He's definitely bumming it a little bit with all these freaking great Eagles. When I first saw his army, I was like, oh, I'll be fine. But then I realized I actually only had 3 air units, and it was definitely going to be a bit of a cockfight. So that's it for my army. So my opponent actually decided to bring some great Eagles. So I haven't seen a lot of these guys. I actually do like them. They're not quite as strong as Manticores. If we go ahead and just do a cross comparison, they have 390 weapon strength, and if you look at a Manticore, they actually have 430. The charge bonus actually is more on the Eagles, but let's go ahead and take a look at defensive stats. 28 melee defense to 35. So I think the Manticore, in terms of just raw combat stats, is just going to win in a straight up fight. But also he does have a Glade Lord here, so he has a pretty scary Air Force, and it looks like he did invest a lot because these guys are 900 apiece, so slightly cheaper than the Manticores, but still, investing so much in these Eagles, that's quite a bit of resources, and, it will take away from his main army here. So if this Eagle Air Force isn't able to shut down my Air Force, it's going to be a pretty bad day for him. And I do have a Chaos Lord here, and he has a Potion of Toughness and a Potion of Foolhardiness, and, he hits really freaking hard when he's buffed by the Flaming Sword of Ruin, so we'll see how it goes. So the rest of my opponent's army, he does have some Eternal Guards with shields. He probably just went for the shields to get the higher melee defense because they do have a lot higher melee defense. And I'm sure, I have seen a few Chaos builds against Wood Elves. I don't think they're good, but they do use the Master Marauder Horsemen, and they'll ride around and try and actually match fire with fire in terms of skirmishing. But really, I don't think that's the best choice. But still, the shields do have higher melee defense, so you can't blame them there. He also has a Branch Wraith, and it looks like he just brought the Earthblood, which is pretty smart. He's got the Glade Guard shafts here across the board with the armor piercing and, all that fun business. So very interesting army here, and let's go ahead and see how these Eagles do, guys. Let's get started. So right now, you can see my opponent just coming in hard. He realizes that I am playing Chaos, and I don't really have a lot of answers to air. So I'm just going to have to go Fisticuffs here. So he keeps his Lord back wisely, and then I actually targeted his Lord, but decided to switch at the last moment. So I switched onto this Eagle here and just focus all my forces, figuring, I can take these guys out. and I used a Flaming Sword of Ruin. So you can see my guy's weapon strength is, it looks like it's 485 right now. Look how hard this eagle gets dumpstered, just absolutely put down. And also they do get terrified. The Great Eagles obviously are not immune to psychology, so the Chaos Dragon is really going to do a good job, and obviously the Manticores here. And 2 of these Great Eagles have just been killed almost immediately. It did force me to pop my Potion of Foolhardiness, my Potion of Toughness, so at the very least my opponent did get that out of me. But other than that, I didn't take a lot of damage on my Chaos Sword. I was able to essentially just shatter one of these eagles, and then the other one is broken. Most likely will come back, but it's going to have minimal impact on this battle. So, and unfortunately, you can see my poor Chaos Sorcerer over here. He's going to be hoofing behind the battle for quite some time, but he did actually get a nice Flaming Sword of Ruin and was able to fend these guys off. So another ability I did bring with the Chaos Sorcerer is I did bring the Piercing Bolts. So I actually like it in this matchup, and I've kind of been taking it instead of the the Cascading Fire Cloak, since the Cascading Fire Cloak did lose its AoE effect, so it's not nearly as strong as it used to be. You can see I finally realized that my Chaos Sorcerer was being left behind, and he actually does have 35 run speed, so hopefully it won't take him too long to get to the front line. So right now I felt a lot more comfortable considering some of those eagles were out of the sky. And the eagles might have been decent choices to come down and harass my Forsaken and then get out, but still, a lot of people are experimenting and probably wanted to see how they would do against Manticores, and just goes to show, definitely not as good as one would think. But still, the Glade Lord is on his eagle as well. He has 117 speed right now, so there's no way in hell my Chaos Sword is going to catch him with his 90 speed, and he's also just harassing me with those, I believe his missile attacks are, no, they're actually not armor piercing, so against the Chaos Lord, it's not going to do a ton of damage, but against the Manticores, you can see he uses the Prey of Anathrama, and he's getting some good attacks in there, doing some solid damage. You can see that's about a 7 to 8% hit point hit right there, and he's also pressuring my Lord, so I pulled my Lord back just a little bit. My opponent, I was pulling back to hide from the missile fire, and then my opponent comes in with these 2 Great Eagles and is going to be able to get a pretty nice little dive on the Manticore here, so very well played. As far as the main engagement goes, I'm sending my Chaos Warriors just straight in. They're going to do a great job absorbing this missile fire. You can see they got their shields up. They're taking pretty minimal damage considering how much they're getting peppered here. So very happy with their performance henceforth. And on that same note, I do have the Forsaken, and you can see these guys, they're taking it a little slow right now, but they're about to accelerate and just run right around the flanks. And since he invested so much in that Eagle Air Force, he's going to have a hard time dealing with Forsaken. And something about the Glade Lord, though he is quite strong, a group of Forsaken could probably cut through him pretty quick, consider how lightly armored he is. And right now I just have my Chaos Lord chasing him down and doing a good job there. So I do decide to land a Manticore. That might have been a little bit risky. So I land him, but he's going to retaliate with those Eagles, so I'm probably be able to shut it down. My other Manticore, I was hoping that he would focus all his attention over here, and then I could go over here and, get this group, or maybe, head off his Lord or something. But it didn't go as planned, and definitely just my Manticore just got dumpstered. So very well played there. So the Chaos Forces are going to get in here, and they're going to do a pretty solid job. And, obviously these guys do have charge defense against large foes, but against infantry, they don't get that charge defense. So he lost out on a little bit of a charge bonus there, but nothing to write home about, because the Chaos Warriors aren't that scary in terms of their just charge. But, the big thing that I have going for me is these Forsaken were able to run around the flank here. And these guys, they're much faster than these Elves. This is just going to be a bad day when they get caught here. So you can see the front line of Elves immediately goes flying. Though these guys aren't terrible melee combatants. They actually have 26 weapon strength and 27 melee defense. But against the 64 weapon strength of these guys, you can see they're just getting cut to shreds. They're down to 41 models. One of them is already wavering. It looks like this group took the initial beatdown, and they're down to 27. So on the other wing, the Forsaken over here are doing the exact same thing. They're just chasing these guys down, and there's no way those Elves are going to get away. And in the front line, I wanted to show you guys this, the Piercing Bolt. So check out the damage on this. It actually seems, like it might be viable against the Wood Elves. He gets there, does quite a bit of damage, probably does a good, 10 to 15% damage on both of these groups, and it was pretty solid. And now considering, it could be really, useful against the Treemen as well, we definitely might want to consider bringing it with the Lord of Fire. So, these Chaos Warriors, I tried to run up the hill to help out over here against these Eagles, but I wasn't really able to find a home, so I just get a nice little rear charge here. And finally, the Chaos Warriors was able to catch up to that front line. My opponent continuing to be very good with his nets, so he keeps netting me down and then shooting my Chaos Lord with his Blade Lord, and he's doing pretty well microing it around the battlefield. But one of the biggest issues is these Forsaken. They're just having a field day chasing these guys down. You guys will get a nice little scenic charge here. You can see the Elves just getting absolutely massacred here. So they're shaken, they're down to 12 models, and I'm surprised they're still on the battlefield after taking that beating. But my opponent does come in with the Glade Lord and is doing a pretty good job with the Forsaken here. You guys will see. Let's go ahead and take a look at his HP, and you can see he's dropping relatively quickly. He does get a nice little attack animation that gets him out of the envelopment there, but still, he's taking quite a bit of damage, and won't work out well for him. Over here, it's going a little bit better. My opponent using his Great Eagles pretty well. They're getting back here on the Forsaken, and they hit really hard. They have 390 weapon strength, so against, a relatively quote-unquote lightly armored unit like Forsaken, they're going to have a pretty decent time, but still, the Eagles themselves only have 50 armor, so it's going to be, some give and take here. It's definitely not going to be one-sided. And I think, if my opponent had kept those Great Eagles back, in his army rather than kind of sending them in to try and get my Chaos Lord, and he had those extra 2 Eagles here, it would have been a lot harder for my Forsaken. I would have had to play a much tighter battle for sure, but still I would have still had my potion on that same coin, and my Lord wouldn't be as low as he is now. So everything has its ups and downs, but still the Forsaken are just running rampant, and the Eagles are trying their best, but they're struggling a little bit here. So the Glade Lord, it tried, but it actually wasn't able to fend off the Forsaken here. It had to run. You can see its health is quite low. In the front line, Warriors of Chaos, their infantry are going to be very, very hard to stand up to for the Elves. And the missile infantry are pretty good, though, against the Chaos Warriors. The armor-piercing one, I'm definitely a big fan of those. And I'm eager to try some of the skirmishers and other units out as well. But the shields and kind of just the heavy armor in the front line did pretty well for me. But, obviously, it's easy to say that because his back line was penetrated quite easily, considering, the Eagles had a lot of issues over there. But still, my opponent is able to isolate some of my Forsaken over here, and he'll definitely be able to cut these guys down. He has some Eternal Guards. He has his Glade Lord over here, and they're just having a field day on these guys right now. So they're down to 20 models, but you guys will see in the post-game screen that they paid their dues, and at this point most of my opponent's army is indeed routing from army losses. So definitely a very well played game. Again, a lot of people are experimenting with different builds. It was fun to see the Eagles in action, and I've actually tried them a few games against the Greenskins, and they did pretty well. I like them. They're really fast. That's also something I didn't point out. They're a lot faster than Manticores, like a lot faster. I think they have like 110 speed, so they're kind of on a point with the same, the Bretonnian Pegasus Knights and things like that. So I think, with mobility and some harass and coming in and, dive bombing the Forsaken, they probably could have generated a lot more value and outmaneuvered my Manticores as well. But engaging them in that straight up fight, especially with the Chaos Lord on his dragon with the Flaming Sword of Ruin, it's a very risky gambit for sure. But, again, it could have paid off. Everyone's learning the strengths and weaknesses of these units. So really well played to my opponent, Rincewind. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Chaos cast, and look forward to playing some more, and you guys have an excellent night.